Welcome back to the channel, my fellow weather junkies. I'm your host, meteorologist Greg Majeski, your trusted weather source to bring you the weather without all that social media hype. Here on your Monday, March 3rd, 2025. Well, we got an important addition to get into as we're going to be tracking a major storm system that's going to be developing here over the next 24 hours. In fact, there are two factors of the storm, one part severe weather and one part blizzard with this one. In fact, the air pressure on this thing could get as low as a Category 2 hurricane potentially as it develops out in the middle of the country. And then we're going to talk about the potential for even more severe a little bit later in the month. Now, before we get going, first, I do want to say thank you and welcome aboard to the new subscribers here on the channel. And if you have not yet subscribed, what you waiting for, my friend, please hit that subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner. It'll be an honor and a pleasure to have you on board here. And if you like what you see, leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up. I do appreciate y'all's support. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the satellite picture out there. Pretty quiet across the eastern third. We got a little bit of rain here across parts of Mississippi we'll talk about here in a second. Here's our storm system is starting to get organized. Got the upper level features still swinging back here across Nevada and into Utah. Some precipitation breaking out ahead of it. And it'll be this part of the country that'll be under the gun, especially going into tonight and into tomorrow morning. West Coast getting a little bit of a break right now, but on those storm system offshore, that'll be moving in here in the days ahead. So let's look at the big picture here. We got a lot of wind energy here in the south. A lot of wind energy out here in the plains, and look out the orange. Already got the blizzard warnings up here, winter weather advisories out here out ahead of it as we wait for the storm system to come on out. And the severe weather element looks like that'll be erupting going into tonight and here across the middle portions of Oklahoma and down toward Texas. We'll talk about that here in just a second. Right now, looking at the big picture coast to coast, again, not bad across the northeast, although brutally cold, looking at temperatures below zero up that way. Again, some rains in the south, some snows with the upper level feature back here into portions of Nevada. Let's go ahead and zoom in here and talk about some of this rain down here toward Mississippi. Not bad. No thunder with this. Just a little bit of rain here moving across portions near Jackson up toward Greenwood and even back over toward portions of northern Louisiana here for this morning. So let's go ahead and talk about what we're expecting from the Storms Prediction Center. We're going to be looking at the day one outlook here as far as what we're expecting for today. So we do have that slight risk for severe weather here. This will be coming in late tonight, going into the early morning hours. That's when the storm system will start to get cranking at that time. We'll go ahead and break down the categories here as we look at this storm system here going into toward tonight. So let's go look at the tornado risk here first. Again, we're looking at that brown area. That's about a 5% risk of running some thunderstorms or tornadoes into this part right there between North Texas and into portions of Oklahoma. That green is the 2%. And then obviously we're going to have a high wind with this as well. That's obviously there in the yellow. That's covering that slight risk area. And we'll also have a little bit of hail with this as well to deal with here for tonight. So this is when the storms get firing. We're talking about late tonight going into the early morning hours on your Tuesday. Then the storm system really gets cranking as we go into your Tuesday. In fact, I want to take a closer look on this. We'll go a little bit closer here. Again, we're talking about an enhanced area for severe weather here. We're talking about Shreveport, Louisiana, Jackson, Bossier City, Pine Bluff, and Monroe, Louisiana. Those are all under the gun there. We're talking about 3.5 million people under the gun here for that enhanced severe weather. The slight risk, that includes Memphis, New Orleans, Birmingham, Baton Rouge, and Montgomery. So as that storm system begins to plow off toward the east, it'll be setting off these various areas of severe weather. So this is not going to be a super outbreak, folks. We don't really have all the dynamics there. We got very strong dynamics, but the heat part, the instability part, that's a little bit lacking. So I do want to talk about this in greater detail. So let's go ahead and talk about the model data. What's driving this storm system? What's driving this? We're going to look at the jet stream. That's that river air about 300 millibars way up in the atmosphere. So it's this low pressure back in here that we're going to be watching that's going to be ejecting out into the plains as we go into your Tuesday and Wednesday. So watch this thing as it makes this turn here as we go in toward tonight. So as it pulls on out, you notice the jet stream's doing a little bit of a split right here. This is what we call divergence. And when you see that happening, that means you got a pretty good spin in the atmosphere, good wind shear in there. Okay, the one thing that's lacking when you're talking about early March is that instability heat factor. That's the only thing that's probably lacking a little bit with this system as it pushes off to the east. But tremendous amount of dynamics as this thing begins to push off toward the east here as we go in toward your Tuesday. It also begins to take on what we call a negative tilt. It's tilting backwards. So when it tilts back to the left like that, that also means additional wind shear, additional wind spin with the atmosphere for those thunderstorms. So that's also is going to be happening with this. Not to mention that the pressure of this thing's going to drop down quite low, down 981, 983. So getting close to a Cat 2 hurricane there on that scale. and this thing really gets cranking and then lifts up toward the northeast as it goes up here and heads on off to the east as we go into Wednesday. So we'll see the cooler temperatures coming in behind this system as this ejects. What's interesting with the long-range model on the European, I want to show this, is in fact, once this moves on by, we have another little system that's going to move on to the east. This will bring in some rains across the southeast as we go toward the end of the week, going in towards Saturday. Is that when we look ahead to the following week, check this out. I mean, this is kind of interesting. It's been there for the last few runs here. I'm going to take this all the way out to the 14th and 15th, and it's like, boom. Oh, wow, look at that. This is going up to the 15th. It looks very similar to what we're seeing right now for tomorrow. Another system that looks almost identical to the one we're seeing right now. Now, of course, this is 300 hours out, so obviously it gets subject to change here as we go further out. But that, again, we're just in that pattern. We're in that time of year where the severe weather is definitely in the cards. We got these clashes there, masses between what's left of winter weather and the spring weather that is coming on. So let's go ahead and do a detailed analysis. We're looking at the high resolution model here on this. Let's go ahead and talk about this. As again, a lot of the stuff that's going to be firing on is going to be coming on late for tonight. So again, we're going to watch this this low system right back here. Here's the upper level system right back here. It's going to be ejecting out of the Rockies and into the plains. And when it does, we're going to get thunderstorms to flare up, but it's going to be very late. Notice as we go to 5, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, nothing going on just yet. But watch what happens here as we get into the early morning hours. Boom. That's midnight. Right at midnight, we start to see the first indications of thunderstorms popping up across Kansas and into Oklahoma. So we're talking about a nighttime event for this initial thunderstorm rounds to get fired up and going there. And notice by 4 o'clock in the morning, we got a pretty good squall line here from Kansas stretching all the way back in toward Texas here. And again, there could be a possibility of a few tornadoes with that line as it starts to get spun up. And then it really gets going here as we go towards 6 and 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning as this moves off toward the east. Notice the backside of this as well. We do have those blizzard warnings that are up in effect. Again, not a lot of snow with this is expected, but it's just the blinding winds. We're talking winds in excess of 50 to 60 miles per hour possible with this thing as this low gets cranking up, and it's going to cause whiteout conditions because of that very high wind there. So this squall line is going to be pushing off toward the east, cutting through Arkansas, going into areas of Mississippi, in through Louisiana as we go into the late afternoon hours. And this will continue to plow off toward the east. And still, look at these snows back here through Kansas and into Iowa and into Minnesota. Again, probably blizzard-like conditions there with that system as it begins to push off toward the east. It looks like it'll be moving in toward northwest Georgia as we go toward the early morning hours and going into Georgia at that time. So let's go ahead and break this down. I want to talk about the ingredients we need for severe weather. So we're going to first talk about the helicity, okay? This is the spin in the atmosphere. The higher the number, the more wind shear that you got in with this thing, all right? So we've got a tremendous amount of wind shear. As this low gets cranked up here, as I pull this out, you're going to see this thing start to really spin up here, going into the early morning hours here. So again, going in toward tonight, really starts to push off. We've seen some pretty high numbers here across Kansas, Oklahoma, into Arkansas. As we go into going into your Tuesday morning. So as this moves on off, it really starts to get cranking here, and boy, the numbers really start to spike. Look at Arkansas. I'm seeing them going into the purple, going to that high of that scale down here. You can definitely see that right there, going very, very high with a tremendous amount of spin in the atmosphere. This pushes off toward the east with that squall line, so you might get little tornadoes to spin up along that boundary, and it pushes off toward the east as we go in toward the early morning hours there on Tuesday going into Wednesday morning. So it really kind of pushes up. But look at the spin there. There's the upper level feature. You can clearly see it's kind of spinning right in there as this drags in behind the system. So we know we got wind shear. That's not a question here. The only thing that's lacking a little bit with this thing is going to be the instability. That's the fuel, okay? Again, we're early March. We're not like at the end of March or in April where we have additional fuel. We have some decent instability here coming in here, going in towards 9, 10, 11 o'clock. 12 o'clock. So the initial thunderstorms, when they fire up here, are going to have a little bit of instability in this area. 1,000, 1,400. That's not bad, especially for this time of year, for that surface cape. All right, that's what we're calling that. That's what our fuel is. All right. But as this thing moves off toward the east, we notice we kind of lose a lot of that. We don't have a whole lot of instability with that line as it pushes off toward the east. Okay. We have a little bit of instability there with the core of the system, but as far as what's along that line as it's pushing off toward the east, not a lot of it. So the only thing lacking with this system is the heat instability, that fuel factor, but the dynamics can overcome that, and that's why we're seeing that line of thunderstorms as it pushes off toward the east. Now, Once it does, again, this is where it's going to be as we go into Wednesday night. It'll be tracking across the southeast at this time, going over here to the European model. We're going to track this off. Again, you're going to have some pretty decent snows on the back side of this thing, wrapping around, some very gusty winds. Notice those isobars in there, those lines of equal pressure, they're very much packed in there. So we're going to be talking about some very strong winds showing 981 millibars. To give you an idea, Category 2 hurricane is 979 millibars, so it's really close. So a very, very strong dynamic low pressure system with this as this pushes off toward the east. It does clear off the eastern seaboard as we go late in the day on your Wednesday. So this clears on out, moves on out, and then it will say goodbye to this system. So this is really kind of our first real spring-like system here, giving us the tale of two seasons. We got a winter aspect of this with a blizzard, and we got the severe aspect as well with this. All right, so as we go forward here on the week, we have a weak system that'll come in here, maybe spreading some snows across areas of, say, Illinois into Michigan, going in toward your Friday. So this is Friday evening there, going in toward the 7th. And this quickly moves on off toward the east and then moves on out. Then we got this weak little disturbance across the southeast, bringing us a little rain there into your Saturday and Sunday, but really not going to amount to a whole lot there. What's caught my eye, obviously, is what I was hinting at, is the fact that we get a bit of a break here. We're going to warm back up a little bit. Notice that the freezing line's way back up here to the north once again. We'll be watching another system that'll be coming in here off the west coast here as we go in toward the 15th of the month, because we got one little weak system here across the east on the 13th. Here's this one, and it'll be this one here diving in, coming in beyond that. That'll be possibly setting up another severe weather event here as this pulls on out here again. Boom, here we go. Almost identical. 982 millibars. I got the snow on the back part of this, and again, thunderstorms in here once again. This next one, though, I think, at least looking at the heights on this, may have a little more heat energy to work with than what we're currently seeing with the current system, as this pushes off toward the east. Again, another severe weather event across the southern plains and tracking across the mid-south once again, going into the 15th of the month. And this pushes off toward the east, and then we see a cool down back behind that. So right now, we got the system we got to deal with this week, and then we got to look ahead toward the 15th. But again, that is way off there, but it has been there in the last few runs. So I'm going to be watching that one very, very closely as we go here in the days ahead. So let's talk about precipitation. We're going to look at the short term here, going 72 hours here, kind of taking the duration of this event here. Going in toward your Thursday, again, some pretty decent rains here across the middle of the country. Some of that will be snow, but the snow amounts are not really all that impressive. I mean, there'll be enough to cause some whiteout conditions, that's for sure. And then going out toward the 10-day here, going out to 240, you're definitely noticing a lot more rain out here on the west coast. So the west coast is going to get a lot more in here. Intermountain region here, talking into Wyoming and Utah and in toward Colorado, they'll get some pretty decent snows as well with this more active storm track coming into March. And takes us all the way out to the end of the run out to 360. You clearly see, especially the eastern half of the United States, getting a lot more. Wyoming, Nevada, California getting some very heavy rains here. So definitely seeing a much wetter pattern here evolving as we go into the month of March. Let's look at the snow totals here. I want to talk specifically about this upcoming quote-unquote blizzard here. Again, not a ton of snow here with this. Not a lot, okay? But again, enough. We're talking, 4 or 5. Here's the purple is kind of your 6-inch. The pink is getting over 8-inch there. So the European not kicking out a ton of snow, but again, with those winds gusting as high as they're expected in this area, upwards of 50 miles per hour, we can definitely see some whiteout conditions here as we go through this upcoming week. By the time we get toward Thursday, we're kind of done with this. Let me go back out to the wide perspective here once again as we take us all the way out to 240. Again, we got a couple of storm systems we can kind of watch that may bring some additional snows there, especially out here in the west. Boy, we're really pegging the meter here across areas of California and here from the Cascades down toward the Sierra Nevada. Looking at Wyoming's really going to start picking up here with the heavy snow totals as well. And I'll just take this all the way out here to the end because we're really pegging out the scale. We're talking feet of snow across Northern California, the Sierra Nevada there, even getting into a couple feet of snow across Utah, Nevada. Looks like we're going to have a real nice big push of some white powder there for those skiers out there in the west. That is for sure. And then we have another storm system here, some more snows with that second system coming in toward the 15th of the month, almost in the exact same place as the one we're dealing with for this week. So definitely looking a lot snowier, especially out in the west. Now, what's very interesting when we're talking about the clash of air masses, when you look at the temperature anomaly map, boy, you can really see where these air masses like to play bumper cars. I mean, really do. with this thing is we're going to kind of look at the one air mass kind of clear out. We're going to be watching this one. This is obviously where we're going to see the air masses here clash as that cold front begins to push off toward the east here. So as this moves on off, you see the roll up there, and it brings in the cooler air back behind it here across the southeast going in toward Thursday. So definitely much cooler here across the eastern, say, third of the United States as we get clash. Then you got a warm up here, then you got a cold air there, and it's just interesting how these things, especially on this run here, you just got to you see the reds and the oranges, you see the warmed air, and you see the blues and the greens. It's clashing. It's one system after another. So one system pulls on through. We get a warm up there going toward the 11th across the middle of the country. It's kind of interesting. You got a warm up here. It's cool here, cool in the southeast, cool here toward the north. It's very, 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 very diluted or chaotic flow. That's the word I'm looking for. Chaotic flow here. With the temperature variability here. And then this is that push us off toward the east, and then here's the big warm up here, the next clash going into the 14th and 15th. So here's the next clash air masses right here as this one swings on through. Again, almost a repeat sequel to what we're dealing with this week as this pushes off to the east, and then look at that. Cool. So almost an exact same spot as what we're seeing for this upcoming week going toward the middle of the month. So a very chaotic start to the month, and of course the variability here will continue to be at play here for the rest of the month. So let's look at the latest from the Climate Prediction Center as we kind of wrap this up, as we're looking at above normal temperatures here in the big part of the country, cooler out here in the west. This is going from the 8th through the 12th. And then definitely seeing out to the 10th to the 16th, colder out here in the west, much warmer here in the east with some intermittent cool shots in between. But the average for the most part is above normal here heading out toward the middle of the month. Precipitation wise, active in the west, kind of drier here in the east, at least from the 8th to the 12th. Remember that next big storm system wasn't until the 15th. So you see it a little bit above normal across the southeast. And then there we go. So it picks up a little more here going out to the 15th and 16th. Remember, we got that next storm system tracking here across the middle. Still very active here on the west coast. We saw that. Look at those snow totals were through the roof here across areas of California and a big part of the Intermountain region. And we're talking Montana all the way down to the Four Corners. Going to see a significant amount of snow with this very active weather pattern here coming at us here as we wrap up the month of, I would say goodbye to them, wrap up the month of February, and we're going into March now. Looks like we're in store for some very active weather. So the plan is we are going to be doing some severe weather coverage. Probably not today. We will start for tomorrow. Obviously, this stuff's going to fire until the wee early morning hours, but we are going to do some severe weather coverage. We're going to piggyback it into my local channel here in North Georgia. We'll be doing some simulcast on that, and looking forward to kind of covering this activity here for tomorrow. It's going to be an interesting day. Again, not expecting a super outbreak here. I know I saw some stuff out on social media hyping the crap out of this. Yes, we're going to have severe weather. We're going to have a lot of strong gusty winds with this, that's for sure. We got a very strong little of a jet with this stuff. We are going to have a few isolated tornadoes, but I'm not expecting any, real big ones, EF3, EF4, long track tornadoes, nothing like that with this particular event. But we will have some tornadoes, and folks need to stay prepared as best you can. You got that weather radio? Again, highly recommend you get one of these. I'll put the link down in the comment section below. So if you want to go out and order yourself one from Amazon, you can get yourself one. These things are very good to have. And also a good service to have is called Weather Call. They're one of our sponsors here for the channel. And if you guys would like to get that service, that's also a good thing to have as well. All right, that's y'all's update for now. You guys take it easy. If you can stay safe, and we'll see you on the next update. Till then, y'all have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.